Let's talk about why people climb Mount Everest. But in order to talk about why people climb it, we should first talk about why not to climb it. Early in the book, around page 22, Krakauer is talking about his early days climbing. He's climbing these peaks in Alaska, in Oregon, and here's what he has to say about how he viewed Everest when he was younger. He said, "But at some point in my mid-20s, I abandoned my boyhood fantasy of climbing Everest. By then, it had become fashionable among the alpine cognoscenti to denigrate Everest as a slag heap." What he's saying here is among the people who are really into climbing, it was popular to dismiss Everest as being just a pile of junk. A peak, quote, lacking sufficient technical challenges or aesthetic appeal to be a worthy objective. According to Krakauer, right here, here's 2 reasons to not climb Everest. And these are 2 reasons that he used to believe. I don't know, maybe he still believes those, I don't know. But when he was younger, he said he thought of Everest as being a slag heap, a garbage pile, a peak lacking sufficient challenges, and then later on, my cohorts and I referred to it as the yak route. Yaks are the animals that carry things up. Basically saying if you climb Mount Everest, you're not climbing the most beautiful mountain, you're not climbing the hardest mountain, and also yaks do all the work for you. Let's talk about a couple of these claims. Earlier in the book, he talks about Everest not being a pretty enough mountain to climb. That's what aesthetic means, by the way, pretty. Among mountaineers and other connoisseurs of geologic form, Everest is not regarded as a particularly comely peak. Its proportions are too chunky, too broad of beam, too crudely hewn. Basically saying, again, what he said before is Everest isn't that pretty of a mountain, and Everest is not even the hardest mountain to climb. What are some other mountains that maybe compare with what he's talking about? So his first claim is that Everest is a slag heap and it's not the prettiest mountain. Let's look at some beautiful mountains. Here are the most beautiful mountains. I looked through some different websites and found where people ranked mountains. These are mountains that consistently showed up at the top of the list where people talk about mountains and how beautiful they are. So here are the most beautiful mountains and then Everest. This is Mount Fitzroy in Patagonia. Patagonia, the brand, is named after Patagonia, the region. The founder of Patagonia climbed this mountain and it is stunning. I mean, look at that. Don't you want to climb that mountain? That's beautiful. This is in Iceland. I can't pronounce it. It's Icelandic, but I'll try. Kirkjufell Grundarjordur, Iceland. That is stunning. This mountain has been called the most photographed mountain in the world, and you can see why. Look at that, stunning. This is the Matterhorn, the real one, not the one in Disneyland. I mean, I don't need to say anything else about this mountain. It's stunning, it's beautiful. My personal favorite mountain is Mount Fuji. Just love this mountain. When I went to Japan, it just appears there out of nowhere and just hovers over Japan. And that little hat it wears of snow all the time, gorgeous. This is actually probably the most pretty mountain I've ever seen. It looks like it's in a movie. Ama Dablam in the Himalaya. So if you want to go to the Himalaya and climb some mountains, why not climb a pretty one like this? And then there's Mount Everest, which just looks like a pile of rocks, right? Mount Everest, Ama Dablam, right? Okay, so you're saying, well, I'm not climbing Mount Everest because it's the most pretty mountain, because obviously there's more pretty mountains than that. I'm going to climb it because it's a hard mountain to climb. Well, he's already told us, and I've already kind of hinted to the fact that Mount Everest isn't the most challenging mountain to climb. Far from it, actually. There's several mountains that are harder to climb. Here's a list of mountains that are harder to climb than Everest. And by the way, there's more than this. This is just maybe 4 or 5 that I found. Annapurna in the Himalaya in Nepal. This is the most deadly mountain on Earth. That's not to say it's the most technically difficult. By technically difficult, I mean the kinds of climbing you have to use, the kind of specialized equipment, how good at climbing you have to be. That's what technical means. And while it might not be the most technical mountain, it's certainly more technical than Everest, where the route is so, I don't want to say it's paved, but it's so established. 40% of the people who climb Annapurna die. 40%. That's nuts. K2. This is the 2nd tallest mountain on Earth, but it is far deadlier than Everest. You spend more time in the death zone on this mountain, and it's way more technical. If you were hanging out with a group of climbers, and one person said they climbed Everest, another person said they climbed K2, they'd be way more impressed by K2 and Annapurna than they would Everest. Oh shoot, this mountain, I got the name wrong, but this is another mountain in Himalaya. It's not K2. And this mountain here, only 187 people reached the top. Again, that's not K2. And then this mountain that no one has climbed. No one's climbed it. There's a reason for it. Bhutan, the country it's in, has banned climbing peaks higher than 6,000 meters out of respect for certain spiritual beliefs. And this is not the only mountain that hasn't been climbed either. There's probably 10 or so mountains that no one has climbed. If you want to climb a mountain because it's beautiful, you're not going to climb Everest. If you want to climb a mountain because it's a difficult, challenging thing to do, and you want to climb a difficult, challenging mountain, you're not climbing Mount Everest. You're going to climb any one of these that are more technical and difficult. So now is when you say to me, well, Mr. Gunther, Scott, I'm not out there to climb the most beautiful mountain. I'm not out there to climb the most difficult mountain. I want to climb the tallest mountain on Earth. I want to be as close to the stars as I can. I got this for you. This mountain in Ecuador is called Mount Chimborazo. And this might take a second for you to wrap your mind around, but this mountain, the peak of this mountain, is the point on Earth's surface that is furthest from the Earth's center. In other words, the top of this mountain is as close to the stars as you can get on Earth. Why is that? Well, as you know, the Earth isn't a sphere. It's actually a smushed sphere. What would you call that? I don't know, smushed sphere. So it's wider on the edges than it is at the top, right? And because of that, this mountain being really close to the equator, pretty much on it, it benefits from being on that squished part. So it is literally closer to the stars by a lot, actually, closer to the stars than Mount Everest is. So if you want to be as close to aliens as you possibly can be, if you want to be close to other galaxies as you possibly can be, it's not Mount Everest. It's this mountain, Mount Chimborazo in Ecuador, and you can climb it. Okay, you're saying, well, I want to climb the tallest mountain, not the thing that's furthest from the Earth's core. That sounds like a lawyer talking. I want to climb the tallest mountain. From the bottom of the mountain to the top. Guess what? And a lot of you know this already. The tallest mountain on Earth is not Everest. The tallest mountain on Earth is actually Mauna Kea. Why is that? A lot of Mauna Kea is underwater. The base of the mountain is deep in the ocean, and then it goes all the way up, and it is much taller than Everest. Everest's base is a little bit higher than that. Well, that doesn't count because part of it's underwater. Think about what you're saying for a second. Let's say I go to the swimming pool with my friend and he's taller than I am. He gets in the water in the deep end and I stand on the outside. Who's taller? He's still taller. We don't measure height by where an arbitrary line of water comes on your body. That's craziness, right? We measure height by saying, how tall are you from the bottom to the top? That's not Everest. That's Mauna Kea. Just because part of Mauna Kea is underwater doesn't mean it's not taller than Everest, because it is. How arbitrary is it to say that one mountain is taller because it is standing outside the pool? That's insane. And then there's Mount Everest. What is Mount Everest really? So it's not the tallest mountain from base to tip. It's not the point on the Earth closest to the stars. Mount Everest is the highest point above sea level. That's it. That's what Mount Everest is. This is a little graphic to kind of help you understand what I'm explaining. Mount Everest is sea level that tall. This picture right here shows you Mount Chimborazo and how the bulge of Earth helps give it some extra height. And that shows you Mauna Kea. So let's go back to the original question. Why climb Mount Everest? It's not the tallest mountain. It's not the point on Earth closest to the stars. It is not the prettiest mountain. Why climb it? Because you have in your mind some arbitrary notion of what height means, and you want to get pride by checking that off your list. But the crazy thing is, there are other definitions of height that actually, I would argue, make more sense, right? Mauna Kea, in my mind, makes more sense as being the tallest mountain. Mount Chimborazo, in my mind, makes more sense as being the highest point on Earth. And K2 is certainly a more difficult mountain, so is Annapurna. So why are you climbing Everest? Because there's a popular idea around Everest being the highest point on Earth. Does that make sense? No, it actually doesn't make sense. Now, I'm not going to say that people shouldn't climb Everest because I think it's awesome, and I'm probably just jealous that I haven't done it. And I get why they climb it. I mean, Mount Everest is the point on Earth that is furthest into the Earth's atmosphere. It's going to be the place on Earth where the air is the thinnest, but it's not the highest point on Earth.